This is episode 60.
Welcome to the Ultimate Deck Podcast.
Ultimate Deck Podcast.
Helping you keep your finger firmly pressed on the decking industry, the people in it, and the information you need to master the backyard. And now, host of the Ultimate Deck Podcast, Shane Chapman.
Welcome, everybody, to the Ultimate Deck Podcast, episode 60. Shane Chapman here for you today, all by my lonesome. My biggest partner in crime, Wade Laurent, down in Mexico right now, escaping this ridiculous cold snap we got going on here. Today, we're talking to somebody that you are probably quite familiar with if you're at all on Instagram or have spent any time at these little networking trade shows that we all talk about so frequently. Michael Scott from Simcoe Decks. Mike, are you there with me?
I'm here. Wow, that was quite the intro.
Did you hear that thing? Unbelievable.
That's nice.
Right? I spent a lot
How long did it take you to come up with that one?
I spent about $65 to a guy on Fiverr, and he came up with it.
Oh, really?
Money well spent.
Oddly enough, you mentioned that. We just started looking into that. There's so many different aspects of our company, marketing-wise, that literally it just makes no sense for me to go and try and figure out how to do it. And when I try and do it anyway, it never turns out good. So we just started looking into them to sub out some of our marketing services and stuff like that.
That's the thing. I knew that I wanted to do something different for the start of this year as far as the intro and whatnot went. And I spent, I don't know how many hours trying to find the right song and the right music and the right idea to create it myself. And then one day I was like, why am I doing this? I should just find somebody who can record this and make it sound really good. And so I went to Fiverr.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And within 10 minutes, I found a guy. I paid him. I wrote the words. I gave him the script, and I was like, I want it to kind of sound a little bit kind of like rock edgy, but not too serious because it's a bit of a entertaining podcast. I paid, and he said 2-day turnaround. I had it overnight, probably 6 hours later. An opener, a closer, some other stuff for 60. Unbelievable value. So.
Yeah, no, it's unreal. So one of the things we're actually looking into right now is just having email marketing and sales funnels and stuff like that. So just working on different things that we can create to add value to our clients and everything like that. And like I said, I've tried doing it. I've sat on the computer, try watching YouTube videos, try to figure it out. And at the end of the day, it's not time well spent for me, right? So
that's right. Yep. Yeah. Do what you're good at and hire other people to do the stuff that you're not. Okay.
Absolutely.
For the folks that aren't familiar with you, you've become quite a presence on Instagram in the short time that you've been in business. So a lot of guys there would be familiar with you, but that's not everybody's there. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, family life, all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, Michael Scott from Simcoe Decks, pretty new company, just focusing on deck-wise anyway. My background was, even for my teenage years, my dad was a general handyman. I worked in contracting. I went to school for architecture, did that for a bit, and then just didn't love the office end of things. So just fell in love with the building. I worked up in Muskoka building custom cottages for a number of years. Then made the move down to the city here. Our smaller city anyway. Took a job at the Carpenters Union, did that for a little bit. It was one of those things that sounded so good on paper. And then once I actually got into it and got involved in it, it just wasn't a good fit for me. So at that point, I'd kind of already changed locations. Didn't really have a lot of connections, so I didn't want to go and try and hook up with another builder or anything like that. So I started just doing general renovations, kitchens, bathrooms, basements. Did that for 6 months. We did a couple of decks, and honestly, I just fell in love with all aspects of deck building. Right, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna switch the company focus solely to that. And honestly, I haven't really looked back. Haven't been in business too long. This is our first full year, but we saw great growth this year, and we're working on doing even better for next year.
So that's so sorry. Just before you switched to decks, you had your own business, but doing general renovations, or you were in the union at that point?
I'd really call it a business. It was basically a family friend had asked me to do a kitchen renovation for him. So I kind of just took that on, and a couple other family and friends and stuff like that had asked me to do some other projects. I wouldn't really say I was like necessarily set up as a business. I was more or less just doing it. And then once I kind of like, you know what, the light bulb went with the decks, and that's when I started to really take it serious.
There's a lot of people that are in a similar situation where they do a little bit of everything, and they've often spent sleepless nights thinking about specializing, whether it's in decks or something else. And there's always a fear of that specializing on those other, right? Yeah, that specializing is going to result in a lack of work or something. There's a fear about it. But what's your advice to people about that?
It was definitely a concern of mine too. Like I was like, is, you know, the deck building going to be sustainable? Am I going to be able to pick up enough jobs to do it? You know, what's going to kind of happen in the winter time when we're downtime and everything like that. But honestly, it was probably the smartest thing I've ever done. So right away, my name is just extremely simple, and it's to the point. Simcoe. So we live in Simcoe County, and decks is what we do. Decks, right? So basically anyone that's kind of looking for a deck builder or anything like that around this area, those are kind of the two main things that they're going to look for anyway. And then when people hear that you just focus on decks and you're not like a general handyman that's, you know, coming to build their deck, but at the same time trying to get on that, you know, their basement renovation project or trying to do their kitchen and stuff like that, I think it just makes the customer a lot more at ease and everything as well. So you can sell, you know, if you were selling maybe like $15,000 projects before, and then all of a sudden you just focus just solely on decks, like basically our smallest deck this year was our largest deck in our first year, right? So
right. So you've seen quite a quick growth curve, I suppose, fairly early in your business. What do you attribute that to? How did you kind of come out of the gate so successfully, aggressively?
So like the first year was a huge learning curve. I don't have any background in business or anything like that or marketing. So I was pricing jobs on what I kind of thought they would go for, and a lot of that was based off of just reading online. You know, what guys on Kijiji and everything were selling theirs for, which were way undervalued, but it kind of got our foot in the door at a couple places, and you know, got our hands dirty type of thing. But once I knew that it was actually, you know, sustainable and it was going to grow and everything like that, but switching it to the name Simcoe Decks was huge for us. Google Ads has been pretty big for us as well. Just because we're a new company, we don't have a lot of word of mouth or anything like that. So getting our name in front of other people is definitely beneficial. And one of the things I always say as well is the word of mouth is great and everything like that, but you could be, you know, potentially losing out on like your next big client or your next big like string of jobs because you're not in front of the right people, right? So if you're just solely focused on your smaller network and that network of referrals and everything like that, like you could be potentially closing that door to other jobs.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's interesting to hear you say that you don't have a background in kind of the business and marketing aspects of business, yet for somebody watching your content that you're putting out on social media right now, it's very much around those things. It's very much around the analytics and the kind of the back end business type things. Without having a background in that, how has that become something that you put so much focus towards? And is it just kind of an interest and a passion you discovered when you started your business, or where did this come from?
So first and foremost, I eat, sleep, breathe everything decks. Like decks is basically like, for, you know, lack of better words, it's kind of my life. Like I just enjoy it. I wake up, that's what I want to do and everything like that. So everything about the industry like kind of excites me and gets me going. And obviously, in order to build these decks and have these cool projects, you're going to have some kind of business side to it. And luckily enough, the numbers and stuff kind of interest me enough that I learned more about it and I start looking more into it. But it's really just like all research and seeing what other guys are doing, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what I can take from them and kind of elaborate on myself. But like we've grown like huge as a company just in the year and a half we've been, because like I said, we literally started off with a low square foot price. And now, like, we have a pretty complicated, well, it's not complicated because I can do it in a couple of minutes, but we have a pretty elaborate Google Sheets document that I can spit out, like, the exact numbers. I know exactly how much money is going into my decking. I know exactly how much is going into my railing, fasteners, my labor, my business expenses, everything like that, as well as I'm getting complete line item, like, numbers, so I can basically take it directly to my suppliers and say, this is what I need, right? So I think a lot of guys kind of get caught up on, like, oh, you know, to do the line item quotes and stuff like that, it's going to take time. And when I'm pumping out a bunch of quotes, I don't really want to be doing that. I just want to give them generic numbers. But like I said, I can literally go through, and our quote page, I want to say, is like an 8 or 9 page process, and I can pump through them in like 2 minutes with a deck quote. Obviously, if you're getting into more complex decks and everything like that, they can definitely take longer, but for the most part, it's not that hard to get like a pretty exact number on what that deck should cost.
It's interesting to me to listen to you mention that you have this kind of intense passion for the industry, and so kind of doesn't feel like work, right? You enjoy being in the back end of things and kind of figuring things out and whatnot. And I do a bit of speaking in front of people, and I always bring that up too. They always want to know the origin story of how I ended up doing what I'm doing. And part of that is always like, I at some point discovered this passion for decks, and now I'm like the most passionate guy ever about this industry. And I can never explain why decks. Like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know why that is what I kind of latched onto, but I did. So it's interesting to hear that there's another person out there just like me. We're going to get along just fine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, like it works. It works so great. Like, so for one, I absolutely love being outside, right? There's something about being fresh air. You're in the sun. You're getting your vitamin D and everything like that. I can spend my days outdoors doing what I love. I love building in general. So to kind of combine those, and then it's like the old thing that everyone says with deck building, you get to do a little bit of everything from the foundation to the framing to the finish work. And then the huge thing for me is in an industry like contracting and stuff like that, where it's so hard, like there's so many bad contractors out there, there's so many bad customers and everything like that. There's nothing worse than getting into like a kitchen renovation or something like that, and you go in with a budget of $60,000, and then all of a sudden you open up that wall and you found asbestos or something like that, and you just added $20K to that budget, right?
Yeah.
With decks, I can pretty much, unless I hit some really shitty soil conditions, I know exactly that number from start to finish. And my customers like that. Whatever number I tell them at the beginning is the number they're getting billed at the end.
You seem like you are a student of the game. I'll say you do a lot of learning. You do a lot of sharing. But there's some resources that you have come to use that I'm familiar with as well, because I use a lot of these same things, although some of the things you gave to me on your list are ones that I'm not familiar with. So now I've got some homework for myself to do. But you're a big fan of this podcast. There's other podcasts you listen to. You're into the Audible, the kind of passive listening type sources of education. What are some of the top resources that you found through, like, your let's say your favorite podcasts or your favorite books that you've been listening to? What are some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So Audible is huge for me. I spend a lot of time like either working or I'm in my vehicle. So, you know, listening to music's great and everything like that, but you can only listen to the same song so many times, right? So one of the things I got into this year was the Audible books. I've crushed through quite a few of them. Some I really enjoy, some I don't enjoy, but at the end of the day, I can always take away something from all of them. So a couple of the ones I really enjoyed this year was Ride of a Lifetime by Robert Iger, who's the CEO of Disney Corp. So it has absolutely nothing to do with my business, but he puts out some great value about leadership and everything like that, you know, creating a culture, keeping employees happy, employee retention. So even though it doesn't directly relate to me, it's all still business things that I can take into consideration and hopefully implement in some way into my company.
Right.
Another one that I really enjoyed was $1 Billion Whale, which was, I don't know if you went through it or not, but it was I think it was a Malaysian like multi-billion-dollar scandal where this guy basically set up a fund in his company that was worth billions of dollars and basically just he stole that money from the country to go and party with celebrities and expensive homes and yachts and everything like that. So it probably wasn't the greatest message or anything behind it, but it was definitely entertaining to hear. And they had some name dropping of some pretty big celebrities and stuff like that. So that always piques your interest. And kind of the last one that really stood out to me this year was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And it's basically impossible to like not listen to him and not be motivated. Like that guy will just kick you into shape so quick, and you think your life sucks or whatever, you're going through some tough things, he'll go through something 10 times worse, and like it just finds a way to get through all of it. And just his positive attitude and energy is pretty infectious.
Do you use these resources as a source of motivation, or is it more pure learning, or is it entertainment, or a little bit of everything, or what's your...
It's honestly a little bit of everything. So I wish I had more time to just sit down and read, but unfortunately I don't. So this is kind of a great resource for me that I'm at least able to take in some of that knowledge. And like I said, even if something like doesn't directly relate to me or my industry or my business or anything like that, there's still kind of like a message that you can take from kind of all these things, and just listening to, great leaders and stuff like that. Like there's always a takeaway, right?
Right. And so outside of sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And then, so just currently I'm listening to What It Takes by Stephen Schwarzman. So once again, it's not really a direct related industry to me, but he's basically in like economics and everything like that. He runs like one of the largest hedge funds, but it's the same thing. It just comes down to like leadership and seeing what he's doing and what kind of works for him, what doesn't work for him, and just creating that culture within your company, right?
Right. And so outside of the audio books, which are awesome, and outside of the Ultimate Deck podcast, which is awesome, what are some other relevant podcasts out there that you're taking interest in right now?
So like a local one to us, and when I say local, they're a few hours away type of thing, but Manny from Hardcore Renos and Carl, I can't pronounce his last name, they have a podcast called The Construction Life. And it's basically just a down and dirty. They don't sugarcoat anything. They cover a little bit of everything from the business end of things to talking to different trades and everything like that. And the thing that I like about them is they're just genuine. They don't sugarcoat anything. They tell it how they feel, and even if you don't agree with their feelings, they'll still tell you how they feel, right? And I can definitely appreciate that. And the other one that I kind of liked, and I went through pretty quickly because I would literally just listen like episode after episode, was the Contractor Sales Academy. So that one definitely related like pretty close to our business. They got some good messages for estimating and quoting and everything like that, and just making sure you're qualifying leads, which was kind of a huge issue for us last year. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I want to say between kind of April and May, we probably went out and did like an actual on-site quote. We probably did like north of 100 of them. And we had like a pretty abysmal closing rate. And honestly, at the end of the day, I was just 100% my fault. I wasn't, vetting any clients. I get a phone call, I'd get excited and be like, you know what, I can go, even if they have a smaller budget, it's like I'm cocky enough that I think that I can go out to their site and sell them on me and sell them on my service. So it was a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, and we've definitely changed things in the business since then so that we can be a lot more proficient in everything that we do. But yeah, like I said, just the messages that they relay and what they're teaching and everything like that, it's some pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the most important things to do, I think, for a deck builder is to learn how to say no to people, because I think probably everybody goes through that stage of trying to win every job or thinking that you need to win every job. And you don't actually find true happiness and relieve yourself of a ton of work until you learn to be able to vet people before you make the time investment into them on their project. Cause it's just not everybody is your customer. Not everybody's, not everybody's able to afford or interested in what you're offering, but you're going to, if you're the guy who shows up first in Google, to your point before about the Google AdWords, if you're the one who shows up there, you're going to get calls from all sorts of people, whether they're right for you or not. And it's a huge time investment to go out on site and meet with people for an hour and a half, and then go home and spend how much more time putting together an estimate for them and then communicating back and forth, only to find out that it was never going to work in the first place. So that initial vetting is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we kind of got into the CRM this year. So the client relations management.
Yeah.
So that was actually one of my posts on Instagram, was just trying to get an idea of, what people were using, what they liked, what they didn't like, and everything. So I spent a bit of time. I got a lot of feedback on that with what guys liked, what they didn't like. So I'd go through and try and do like a quick Coles notes on the majority of them and see what actually worked and didn't work. One that actually it works. I think it's going to work extremely well for our business is called Pipe Drive. And it was actually Leaf over at Cascade Fence and Deck that kind of put me on to that one. And the great thing with that is it's a paper trail. And we got a lot of comments from guys saying, oh, we're just small. We're not big enough to deal with client relations and stuff like that. Like, I just keep it in a notepad and everything like that. And I'll be the first to tell you, we're small. We're one guy and I have one employee that works for me. So it's not like we're running huge crews or anything like that, but to have just the automated reminders that, you need to follow up with this person, or you need to do a follow-up phone call, or making sure that your proposals are getting sent out and you're not forgetting about something. At the beginning of last year, like I said, we were literally just chasing our tails. I had like 100 plus quotes in like the course of 2 months. So I was literally working every single day, then going out at night, doing 3 or 4 quotes, coming back, trying to get like actual proper quotes done and everything like that. And it was impossible to keep up with, especially with the pen and paper method. And unfortunately, actually a couple of them slipped through the cracks or whatever. And then so we'd have plans to go out and see clients, and then I'd have it written down in my book, but I don't have my book with me. So then I forget that evening I had a quote to go do. So we got a couple of pretty bad negative feedbacks from that on Google Ads or Google reviews, which is big for us because we have a lot of pretty positive things said about us from like actual customers. But at the same time, I can't fault any of those people for leaving bad reviews, because at the end of the day, it was my fault, right? So I should have, handled the situation better and had better track of it. But unfortunately, I didn't. So that was one of the things I definitely knew this year I needed to do better and keep track of. So having those, client relations management programs in place so that I know exactly what stage every single deal is at. I know if I've sent them an introduction email. I know if I've had a phone call with them, if I've done a follow-up email, if we've discussed pricing, if I've done an on-site quote, how long has it been between each period type of thing, what the next action is I need to do, and just having that automated process that I know exactly where everything's at, I think is going to be huge for us this year.
Yeah, it's the CRM thing was something I explored pretty heavily at the beginning of last year. I went through that whole like software evaluation kind of period, if you want to call it that, trying to figure, because there's so many out there and it's so hard to. Yeah,
it was overwhelming. Like and almost every single person had like a different response. Like every single person liked a different CRM software.
Yeah.
And I think unfortunately most people, they kind of either they just pick the first one that they see and then they get comfortable with it and they don't really explore options, or they don't really know what else is out there. So I made a point of basically, just like I said, I made that post on Instagram, find out what everyone was using, what they liked, what they didn't like. And I literally I sat behind the computer for hours and hours and hours and kind of did a quick little Coles notes through every single one. And then narrowed it down to a few that I thought could kind of work and what people were really liking. And then I explored those ones a little bit further. And then from there, we found Pipe Drive that it works extremely well for us. And so thanks to Lee from Cascade Fence and Deck, and I pass on that knowledge too, right? So I've already had discussions with like Dustin from Aztec Dex and Kevin from NFDI and everything like that, about using those programs and like how they see that they would fit in their business or what they would like to see different and everything like that.
Yeah.
So that's worked out great for us.
The most frustrating thing or part for me when I was going through that evaluation was that I didn't really know what exactly these CRMs were supposed to do for me. And so it was tough for me to evaluate them when I didn't exactly know how I was going to be using it or what they were doing, or even understand the verbiage that they were using to describe their features. It was very, very foreign to me. We ended up sitting down and trying out last year HubSpot, which I don't know if that one was in your.
It was definitely in. It was in the list. That was one of the ones that kind of made it through to the final stages. But like I said, Pipedrive just seemed to be like a perfect fit for us. And once again, what works for us doesn't work for everyone, right? So Don't just take my word for it. Go out and do your research, see what works for you, and go by that, right? So
for sure, yeah. The intriguing how we ended up with HubSpot, I think, is because I was so green on what these things were going to do for me. I didn't want a big investment up front, and HubSpot, of course, has a good amount of their features are free, including the sales pipeline utility, which is kind of sounds like what you're finding value in as well. And so you're at least able to try that out and see if it works for you without investing anything. The trouble with HubSpot is that they've got so many other fantastic features, but the price creep is very high on it. So if you want to start adding some of the paid features, you go from zero to a lot in a short amount of time. But if you're just looking for the basic features, I found it to be quite a valuable tool as well.
Yeah. So we actually, like within a couple of days of using Pipedrive, we knew that there was going to be some of the paid features that would be extremely helpful to us. So we ended up just basically canceling our trial and going right to a paid subscription.
Right.
So some of the things I just absolutely love about that is it integrates with my phone and my email. So I know every single point of contact with that customer. I know when I've emailed them. I've known when I've had phone calls with them. I know how long I've talked to them. I can make notes in those files as well. Like this is what we discussed over that 2-minute period. So it's just having an actual paper trail that's not in a notepad that's going to get lost. And I can access it from all my devices. I can access it from my phone. I can access it from my laptop. I can access it from my desktop.
Right. Yeah, there's no doubt that it's an invaluable tool for those who don't know what it is. I would encourage a lot of people to go give one of these things a try. Get on a free trial or try HubSpot that's free, and just see. Because for us, I didn't understand I thought about getting into a CRM for probably a year or two prior to actually taking it seriously and trying it. And then once we got into it, it was like, oh, now I get it. Now I understand why everybody says you need to have one of these things. Unfortunately, it was something that we, at the start of this year, kind of got off of. It does require a bit of extra manual work, but it's just having that visual of the different stages of your sales process, having that visual there to remind you, so you're not having to go through paper folders, and it just keeps you a lot more organized at a glance, which was the value that we saw.
So I can't really speak to HubSpot because I didn't play with it too much.
Yeah.
But once again, one of the huge things that sold me with Pipedrive is I can literally integrate my leads that come in directly from my website. So any lead that I get from my website gets directly punched into Pipedrive automatically. So I'm not having to go and take that information and manually entering it. The second that someone fills out a form on my website, I get a lead in Pipedrive.
Sure.
So that's definitely nice. The other thing that we're looking into doing as well, because April and May are just like unreal, like your phone rings nonstop, you can't get anything done, is actually outsourcing our calling. And what they're going to do as well is just handle all those leads so that they can just input them right into into Pipedrive. And then we have all that information, and right away you can set up like just automatic funnels so that as soon as a lead comes in, you can have it automatically generate an email to send out like, hey, thank you for reaching out to Simcoe Dex. I'm Mike, I'm your point of contact. Here's a couple of things that might interest you, whether you're sending them like some information on some of the products you use.
Yep.
So they have a better idea when you're actually talking to them too. Because a number of the times, customers don't know exactly what they're looking for. They don't have an idea of their exact sizes. They don't have an idea of exact budget. They might even have, a $5,000 or $10,000 budget in mind, and then they describe something. You're like, well, that's a $25,000 deck, and they honestly just don't know. It's not that they didn't want to spend $25,000. It's just that they thought $10,000 was a sufficient budget, right? So
yeah, for sure. You'd mentioned a couple of guys that you have established a relationship with to kind of bounce ideas off of and learn from. NFDI.
Yep.
These guys are on Instagram for those who are out there maybe not following them yet. NFDI, Neighborhood Fence and Deck, Aztec Carpentry, Aztec Decks, I guess he is now. You mentioned as well, and Cascade Fence and Deck as well. Are there other guys that you're kind of have that really? Because I mentioned this when we were down in Louisville. I think on the podcast at the Decorators booth, I had mentioned that Wade and I noticed you and Kevin from NFDI kind of sitting off in a corner at supper the one night, going through kind of the same conversation we're having right now, really getting into the business side of things, which he thought was really cool. Because there's a lot of, at these events, there's a lot of chitter chatter about work and about how to do different things, physically building a deck, but there's not a whole lot of that, how to run the business kind of chat that happens, but it's starting to.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned a few guys you have those chats with. Are there other guys that you're inspired by, not only from the craftsmanship side, but from like how to run your business that you've learned from?
Yeah. So the good thing with us is that we have, like you said, the local guys that literally, they don't compete directly in our market, but they're close enough that they're dealing with the exact same thing. They're same products, same distribution and everything like that. Yeah. Really similar pricing and everything. So they're only like an hour and a half away from me. So to have them is huge to go back and forth. Kevin and I have met up like a couple of times, like in the evening and stuff like that. We'll go out, have dinner and a couple of drinks or whatever like that. And it was actually funny, the one time we went to St. Louis and Kevin literally brought his entire desktop computer and set it up at the bar at St. Louis. And we go through all our documents, what he's using, what he likes, what he doesn't like, what I'm using, what I like, don't like, what we can do to kind of make them both better and everything like that. So that's huge locally.
When you say desktop, like he brought an actual desktop.
I'm talking
computer?
Like a full Mac-top desktop computer. It was hilarious.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, like and not even a little one. Like I'm talking like this thing was like a 28-inch monitor. Like he's got it in both hands, bringing it into the restaurant. We got some looks in there, but at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. It was great for both of us. We were able to share some great information, and we both took a lot away from that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about beyond? Like those guys I know are all kind of in and around you. The internet makes the world a pretty small place. You can communicate with anybody. Are there other guys that you kind of keep in touch with?
Yeah, so the Vinyl Guys is one we've kind of reached out to recently. I didn't follow him. I didn't know who he was before Deck Expo or anything like that. But he's been great. He's got a pretty similar mindset to me. He's doing some great things. He does some great work and everything like that. So he's been great to bounce ideas back and forth with. Obviously, you got Mark Infinite Decks. They do some crazy projects. You got Jason from Dr. Decks. They do unreal stuff. Old Brucey from Donegan Decking. I actually just had like an hour-long conversation with them there last night. It was nice. A little video chat and everything like that. So it's interesting to see what goes on over there. Like they have just a completely different set of struggles with distribution and everything like that, and things we take for granted here in North America that they're fighting to get over there, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's one of the coolest things, how small this community is becoming with Instagram, Facebook, because there's Facebook groups as well, right? I think a lot of these relationships start on Instagram. That seems to be kind of where the most established community is, but there's also been these Facebook groups that have popped up recently as well, that there's a couple of them out there, like the Deck Builder Professionals, and I think you're in that group, right?
Yeah, so I just found out about it. I'm not huge on Facebook, I think, which is the case kind of for a lot of guys. A lot of guys just like the simplicity of Instagram. But one of the great things that I'll take from Facebook is it's so much easier to organize like groups and conversations and everything like that. Like you just have everything in one group, one place, right? Whereas Instagram, I might make a post on CRM, and then another guy like Mike over at Deck Phenom, he does a whole bunch of posts and everything like that. He's trying to get like the discussions rolling and stuff like that as well. But to try and remember exactly where I saw this or where I saw that or coming back to it later, doesn't always make sense. Whereas when you have the Facebook group, you've literally got basically just a feed of all that information, and people are asking great questions, and people are providing great feedback, right?
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't consider myself super active in those groups. I'm there, and so if the conversation happens to pop up into my feed, sometimes I partake in it. But I think I was underestimating how much is going on in these groups until I was just down at in Grand Rapids the other day at the National Nail thing, and
Camo there.
Yeah, and some of the people that were in that room, they said they recognized me from those groups. And I was like, I don't even feel like I'm on that group that much, but they had recognized my profile picture, I guess, or something. Yeah. And I had met with, outside of this, but Decorators, is also located in Grand Rapids. So I made a point of meeting, or Jace, I should say, made a point of reaching out to me. So we went for breakfast the one morning, and it came up again there. Jace was like, his phone was going nuts. And he's like, man, I didn't know about these Facebook groups. He's like, but since I joined this one here, he's like, my stream of messages into me is constant out of that group. Like I post one thing and all of a sudden I've got people contacting me constantly. And so I think I myself was underestimating the activity in there. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways,
I find the funniest part from that. So Instagram, everyone's known by their Instagram handle, their company name. Like I'm known as Simcoe Dex. People don't know me as Mike, right?
Yep.
But you go to the Facebook group and then everyone's known by their name.
That's right.
So it's carryover is huge, but like if you're just following, like All Decked Out or something like that on Instagram, like you don't know like what you do, but you can't remember always like their name and stuff behind it. So it's kind of funny going over to Facebook and then it's like actual more personable like name thing too, right?
Yeah, for sure. I remember my first trip down to IBS a few years ago. The first time I ever went to IBS, I had tried to introduce myself to a couple of people that I follow on Instagram, and I had a fairly good following as well. And this was back when my Instagram account was still Fresh Dex. And so I had introduced myself to a couple people like Brad Gosling and a few of these other guys, and was like, hey, how's it going? My name's Shane. And they would kind of look at me blankly like, am I supposed to know who you are? And I'd be like, like Fresh Dex. They're like, oh, Fresh Dex. Yeah, I know Fresh Dex, but they had no idea what your actual name was, right? So I've since changed my name.
I got that pretty big when I went down to Louisville this year with you guys at Deck Expo.
Yeah, I bet.
So the Instagram, I tried to keep it basically just focused on like the work and everything like that. I didn't really make it too much about me or, showing my own face and everything like that. I really just wanted it to be about like the product that we were, delivering to our clients and stuff like that. So I'd get down there and everyone's like, oh yeah, like Simcoe Dex, but they knew Simcoe Dex, but they had no idea who I was, right? Like they had no idea of like the face that's behind the company and everything like that.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of like in the back of my mind going forward is just to try and be like a little bit more personable and everything like that behind it, so that Simcoe Dex is kind of associated with me and doesn't have its own identity, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's kind of, the reality of social media, the stage of social media that we're getting into is businesses starting to open up and showing their personalities and showing who's behind the brand kind of thing. So I think that's probably not a terrible way to go about it. Are you hearing those same beeps I'm hearing? I feel like I've lost you here, Mike. We might have to redial back in with Mike here. I think we've lost connection with him. So give me 1 minute here, folks. This has been such a good conversation with Mike. We do a lot of these, but we do a lot of these podcasts and we learn a lot about the origin stories of people and kind of what gets them ticking. But I think Mike from Simcoe Dex is very big on the business side of things and the analytics and the numbers behind it, which I've mentioned a lot of times in the past that I feel like that is the part that deck building contractors struggle with the most. Everybody knows how to build a really good deck, but not many come into their business having a lot of experience running the business prior. So this is a great conversation we're having with Mike here. Hopefully we can get him back on the line.
Hello?
Hey, Mike, you there?
Yeah.
I think
what happened there?
We somehow lost you for a little bit there.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I was able to fill the time talking about nothing until we got you back. So that's good.
Hopefully no one will even know if it was gone.
Yeah. So this is all great that analyzing all this data that you have and these leads that are coming in. We mentioned a little bit about the Google ads and whatnot, but what other sources are you finding you're having success with finding people, your lead generation, finding customers? Where are they coming from for you? I know there's been some conversation, especially recently because of the time of year, about home shows and whatnot. Is that something that you are utilizing? Is there other sources?
Yeah, so this was like the first year that I even really like looked into it or thought about it or anything like that. So I don't live in a huge area, but it's big enough. Our population kind of in our area is about 150,000. So we don't have huge home shows, but we get, enough traffic through there that I kind of thought it made sense. So I just started exploring the option of it, but I knew right away, like right from the beginning, that I didn't want to just have a table and a tablecloth that said Simcoe decks on it. I wanted it to be something that someone comes and they're like, wow, like this is what you guys do. This is options. These are possibilities. So I had no idea how I was going to go. I reached out to a couple of our suppliers and stuff like that pretty early on. And a lot of people were, they were backing it. They were on board for it. I had like some other companies that honestly we haven't used a ton of their product, but they were still they were super excited to help out and get behind it and everything like that. So I'm hoping that having their products at the home show and everything like that will kind of help clients see and visualize things instead of just seeing like a couple of pictures of it or seeing a brochure or something like that, to actually like see something in person. This is how it kind of works. This is how it ties in with everything else. And just seeing an overall picture, I think it's going to be one, good for our sales, and then also, help get into some of these added accessories and stuff like that with like privacy screens and lighting and pergola options, patio furniture and all that.
Sure. I think there seems to be a very polarizing opinions about home shows. Some guys are very much about them and others are very much not.
Yeah.
I know you've been kind of having that conversation with people. Is that something you noticed as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of two ways. Guys will love them, or guys think they're a complete waste of time and money. I'm honestly not going into it with huge expectations, but at the very least, I just want to have some brand awareness and everything like that. And even if we don't close deals at the home show or anything like that, at least they come by, they see Simcoe Deck's booth. It's a booth that they remember there. That stands out to them. And even if they're not looking for a deck this year or next year or something, hopefully down the line, just seeing my name pop up a couple of times and the quality that we're associated with will be the first call when they actually time comes to build that project. Right.
Yeah. And I think your attitude towards it is the right one, or it's at least most similar to mine. So I think that because we share opinions that they're right.
Yep.
But I think that's I think that's the difference between somebody who says they're a good idea and somebody who doesn't, is their approach to it. If you're expecting to show up there and your idea of success is that you walked away from it with 30 jobs booked, well, there's a good chance you're going to end up disappointed and think it's a waste of time. But if you're somebody who's there more from the understanding that, listen, I'm just here to expose my brand a little bit. I understand that people don't make decisions on the spot all the time, especially in this industry. But that I just want to build some awareness and build some relationships and just kind of teach people what we're about, then that's a lot harder to quantify, but long term, it's more valuable in my opinion. And so we've always been a part of our local home show, and we've seen the results of that. People walk into our store all the time saying that's what they learned about us from. And actually we had a customer this year that ended up buying a fairly sizable project from us this year. And she had mentioned that she had basically been to the home show every of the last 3 years that we've been in it, and had seen us at it each year. And that was like her presence and seeing us there and seeing us, how we dealt with people there for the last 3 years, is what led her to finally decide that they were going to come do it with us as opposed to anybody else, or try to manage this project themselves. And so you don't know that doesn't give you an ROI after your first home show, but little by little that value and that, the brand that we were building by her seeing us over and over again, in the end cashed in for us. Right. And so it's hard to find that in the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And even if they don't, like you said, if they're not going with you this year, maybe they don't go with you next year or something, but they've seen you at the home show. They kind of remember from last year. Then all of a sudden they Google local deck builder, they're looking for a local deck builder, and your name pops up again, then they're more likely to go with you anyway, because they feel like they kind of have a bit of that relationship with you. They know what you're associated with. They know what you do, opposed to just having 5 guys that pop up and they don't really know, who to go with. Right. So it helps differentiate yourself that way.
Yeah, for sure. It also depends on your business model, I guess, too, as to for us, obviously, as a dealer on the side of things, we want to have as many customers as we can. The more people walking through and buying things, the better. And, as we grow, if the business grows, we just hire more people to handle the business. There are other models with contractors though that say like, oh, I want to stay as a one-man crew because I want to be able to control quality, and we only want to book 12 jobs a year. If that's kind of your model, maybe the home shows don't make sense because you can book your 12 jobs through referrals and through other means that don't require a full week's investment of time and money into what essentially is cold leads, when you can kind of more effectively, but if you're somebody who's wanting just a massive business, I think it's a good place to be.
Yeah. And like, even going back to the point where, you're just relying on word of mouth and referral and everything like that. And you might be booking that your goal might be 15, 20 decks a year, and you're booking up your 15, 20 decks a year every single year. You're happy, money's coming in, your employees are happy. But even like, let's just say you're taking 2 or 3 projects on that, maybe they aren't the greatest fit for you, or they're not a project that you're absolutely in love in, but you're taking them to fill your schedule, right? So if you've got brand awareness and everything like that, and you've got some different sources of leads coming in, then all of a sudden you can be a lot more, even though you're not looking for high volume of turnaround and jobs and everything like that, you can be a lot more selective of what you're taking in.
For sure. Yeah. Yep. There's truth to that too.
Yep.
You also mentioned in some of our pre-show notes here that you use, or you at least mentioned magazine ads. Is that something you've done stuff with? Have you found success in using print?
No. So it's one of the things that there we get cold called quite a bit about magazine ads, but it's nothing that we've ever looked into. Even just running like half page ads here and everything like that, like you're looking at $2,000 to $3,000 for like a half page ad. And to me, I don't ever see like a return in that. Maybe some guys, they do or they don't or whatever. I've talked to like a couple of people that they don't really see the value in it, but at the same time, they're just looking more as the brand awareness and everything. So I was just kind of curious to what everyone else, what their opinions were with the magazine ads and all that.
I think the general trend of people's opinions on that is that, to your point, it's an expensive medium and the return is hard to justify on it. So when we first opened the store 4 years ago, the first thing we did was book in one of these little magazines in a subdivision that was brand new, had a bit of a neighborhood magazine. And we thought, well, that's great. There's a ton of new homes going up there. This magazine is distributed only to that area. This could be a really good thing. So we booked in for that on a 3-year, 6-month seasonal contract. So for 3 years, we would run ads in the magazine for 6 months over summer, thinking that it would be a good investment. Yep. I don't know that. I think we had 2 people ever visit the store that mentioned they had seen us in that magazine, and I don't know that either of them bought. It turned out for us that we spent a fair bit of money in there that I don't know ever showed a return, and so we haven't touched a print ad since. Essentially, it's just so expensive for what it is.
Yeah, it's expensive, and it's a lot harder to manage and to know exactly where things are coming from. When you're using stuff like Google AdWords, and I literally have an entire page of analytics that are sitting right in front of me, I can tell exactly when people are viewing my ad the most, what days are most popular, what my demographic is. I've got all this information in front of me that's directly related to my business, whereas when I'm running print ads, or if I were to run print ads, I have zero feedback on it. I'm hoping people looked at it. I'm hoping people mention that they saw it in the ad when they do come in.
Well, yeah.
There's no real tracking it.
The only analytic you get out of that is their distribution numbers, which the guy saw in the ad is really big on. Did you know this goes to 20,000 homes? Yeah, 20,000 homes, great. But what are people doing with it? If it goes to 20,000 mailboxes, that's fine.
Get thrown out at 60% of the.
15% of them go straight to the trash. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it's one that we haven't really seen much success with. I don't anticipate that medium making a comeback anytime soon. If they, all advertising has value to it. It's just that on some of them right now, they're becoming old and they're overpriced. They haven't reduced the viewership, and the effectiveness of some channels of advertising is dropping, yet the prices have remained stagnant. And so it just doesn't make sense for some of these, is my opinion. But
and our biggest thing is I don't have an unlimited budget for advertising, right? So I've got a certain amount of ad dollars that I need to work efficiently for me, right? So I don't want to take half of them and put them into a magazine where I could take that money that's literally going to, produce like 20 times those results, right?
Exactly. So. Yep. Another topic that you had kind of jotted down here was kind of some thoughts around setting up a business. And I like some of the point notes that you're making here, because I feel like this is something we're still growing into ourselves and learning a lot about. But the points you had mentioned here were not being dependent on yourself, kind of the business not being solely dependent on one person or yourself, taking care of your body, workplace safety, employee retention, all that kind of stuff. Tell me a little bit more about what you had in mind behind that, because I feel like this is a learning moment for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm completely honest. Our business is solely resting on me. If I'm down or something happens to me, basically the business it's not running, right? So it's not making money. It's not doing anything if I'm not directly involved. And that's both the business end and building end, right? So I actually went down with a freak foot accident this year. I sprained my ankle pretty good, and it was literally the dumbest thing ever. I was just walking out of my trailer, rolled my ankle, sprained it, and I was 2 weeks. I couldn't even walk on this thing. Like, I couldn't even put the slightest amount of pressure, nothing. Luckily, I'm pretty upfront and honest with all my clients. I have a pretty good relationship with them. They knew what was going on, what had happened, and everything like that. And it's obviously one of those things that's it's kind of out of your control, but it was a real big eye opener for me that if something, does happen to me or anything like that, like, how am I bringing in money? I still have bills and everything that I need to pay and take care of. And if I'm down and I'm out and I can't work, then that's definitely an issue. So, trying to put in like some systems in place, or, sharing some things with the business, with employees, or getting, employees that are actually like interested in the business and everything like that is definitely huge, so that you can kind of make it more of a group thing instead of an individual thing. I think most people just get scared that if they start sharing that and start doing that with their employees and everything like that, they go from a worker to basically a business person, right? And what's to stop them from going out and starting their own? Where, to me, I have like an ass backwards approach to it. Like, you want to be like grooming someone that's, they're good for your business and everything like that. And to me, if I groom my employees so good that they want to go out on their own and they think they can be successful, I'm all for it. Like, to me, that's it's almost a pat on my back that this is what I produced, right?
Yeah. So
absolutely. Maybe it's not the greatest for employee retention and everything like that, but I think like creating that company culture and everything that goes behind it is a huge part to it, right?
Have you, going back to the book conversation, have you read or listened to a book called The E-Myth?
I haven't, but I actually just saw that one that came up in the Facebook group. So I have like a wish list on Audible that's probably like 30 books deep right now. Yep. And I actually moved that one up my list a bit, because there was quite a few people that did mention reading it. Yeah,
I think you should move that one up quite high on your list. It's written by Michael Gerber. I actually came across this book a few months ago, listening to a podcast. It's not related to this industry, but definitely related to kind of entrepreneurship and businesses. And there was, I believe it was the owner of Edible Arrangements. So there's a podcast I listened to called How I Built This. And I love that podcast. It's just origin stories from a lot of big brands that are out there, kind of how they got their start, the struggles they went through, et cetera. And I love listening to that.
Big one.
Pardon me?
It's like top. It's pretty a big podcast too. Isn't it like one of the top trending like business podcasts?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, it's a big podcast, very highly listened to. So, and it's the one podcast that I've been able to get my wife to listen to on the road. So she's got no interest in listening to my own podcast. She's got like a lot of the ones I listens to, they're a bit dry for her, but this one, she's like, well, these are kind of cool. Like, she likes it too. So anytime we're on the road together, that's what we listen to, because I can get her buy-in on it. But we were listening to one and they were interviewing the founder of Edible Arrangements, and he mentioned this book. He had mentioned that there was kind of like this turning point in his business, and it came after listening to this book, The E-Myth. And I had actually not heard of it before. A lot of my referrals for listening material come from these podcasts. Other entrepreneurs would be like, man, I listened to this book, it changed my life. Well, this is the book he mentioned. And so I right away looked it up and was like, what is this even? It doesn't, to me, it sounds like it's some sort of e-commerce book is by the title, but it's not at all. But it's a book all about kind of what you're talking about now, and getting yourself out of the day-to-day of the business by implementing systems and processes so that everybody in your business can succeed, and that you don't need to hire the most qualified person in your business, because you think that you need that kind of person to alleviate the stress off you. It's about putting systems in place that anybody can succeed with. And man, listening through that first 8 chapters was basically as if somebody wrote a book about what's happened in our business for the last couple of years. It was like his understanding of how businesses work when you don't have the proper systems in place. It was exactly how things have worked for us these last few years. And so we had started to understand that a bit, probably in the middle of last year. It's like, boy, we got to change some things. And this book now has just given us affirmation about what we're trying to do and some major guiding principles to implement these systems and processes that we're doing right now. So to your point, if anybody out there is looking to transform their business, to do what you're saying here, get yourself out of it a little bit and get your people more engaged and reduce turnover, it's a pretty good book to listen to. So put that one on your list for sure.
Yeah. You don't even need to take the approach or look at that like you're getting out of the day-to-day or you're not going to be as more involved or anything like that. Like, don't think you're giving away decision-making or anything like that. It's just setting yourself up so that you have like a supporting cast around you that's making you even better type of thing, right?
Yep, exactly.
Instead of just being solely based on yourself, you're the only one that's making decisions, you're the only one that's doing anything. You get everyone involved and it only makes you better, right? And then your employees, they appreciate you more because they see what's going on behind the scenes instead of just seeing you like 9 to 5 at work. They see, the other stuff that's involved in it as well. And then they appreciate the fact that you're involving them and bringing them in, and then you're, giving that trust to them, right? So it makes them want to produce more for you as well.
For sure. Yep. You mentioned...
It's actually funny you mentioned that too, with the wife in the car. So like I said, I do quite a bit of driving. So it's always one of the sticking points. I actually just got engaged recently.
Yes.
But it's one of the sticking for me is trying to find something that we can both listen to. We both love country music, but finding like these actual podcasts and stuff like that and stuff that we can relate to and listen to and both enjoy is it's kind of one of those sticking things. So maybe we'll look into that business podcast, How I Built This. Is that what it's called? Yeah,
How I Built This with Guy, somebody, I can't remember his name. His first name's Guy, but it's big. Yeah. And my other favorite one is called Business Wars, if you haven't heard of that one too. Business Wars is the way they narrate the podcast is very storybook format, but they tell the histories between some of the biggest brands in different industries and their rivalry throughout the years. So you'll have podcasts and it's usually about a 6 or 7 part. So it's kind of like a 6 or 7 hour commitment to this thing, but they break it up into chunks. But it'll be things like Coke versus Pepsi or Nike versus Adidas or, all these big brands and how they've kind of battled throughout the years and how they came to be. And I find it super interesting. Again, not super related to the decking industry itself, but just for somebody who enjoys business, it's a fun one to listen to.
Yeah. And then going back to like the Audible. So that was kind of one of the things from the Ride of a Lifetime from Robert Iger. So Disney's obviously a huge company, but they've had like their share of, problems throughout the years. And one of the things was one of their biggest divisions now is Pixar. And Disney didn't always own Pixar. It was created by, I think it was created by Lucas Films, and then Steve Jobs bought it from Apple.
Yep.
And then the old CEO of Disney didn't get along with the Apple CEO. So it was like a huge turmoil between the two. And then when he came in, it was like bringing the two companies together and finding how they could work together and stuff like that. And I always find it like fascinating when you get like, companies that are that large, like obviously the egos are out of this world, right? So finding ways that they can come to common ground and work together and, how they're dealing with all their different adversities and everything is pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to hear other people. And that's when you can take a step back and understand the scale of some of these companies and how they work and operate. And to what we were just talking about, the whole systems and processes and getting things to work smoothly in your business, all the big ones have figured that out a long time ago. So that's the piece I'm trying to make with myself sometimes is understanding like, I'm a small business and my problems aren't that big. If there's a solution to it already out there, it shouldn't be as overwhelming as it is sometimes if we had the appropriate things in place to deal with them. So it's like, that's how people scale is through that. So, you mentioned earlier with your trade show, the home show, that you had talked to a few different brands about helping out with the trade show, and some of them that you haven't really done much with in the past. We're still eager to help out. What's your take on brand loyalty within the industry? do you kind of find yourself latching onto a single brand of decking and railing, or do you like to keep your options more open? What do you show to customers? How does that all work? Oh, I think we've lost you again here. Let's try. You back there?
Yeah.
Something's
not jiving.
Dropped you again.
Something.
I'm not sure when you cut off, but I was just asking, where did you hear up until? I was asking about the home show.
Yeah.
Did I lose you there?
I didn't hear anything about the home show. I kind of just got into when you were dealing with like the whole systems and everything like that. And
I see.
Yeah.
So my next thought was, I was referring back to your home show. You mentioned that you reached out to a few brands to kind of help out with the home show and your display, and that you had talked to a couple brands that you hadn't really dealt with much before, but they were still eager to help. What's your kind of take on the whole thing? Like your whole strategy as far as products go? Do you find yourself fairly brand loyal to certain brands of decking and railing, or do you like to keep your options a little bit more open, show the customers more options? What's your position there?
I definitely, at the end of the day, I want to sell what, in my opinion, is the best option to my client. There's a lot of great brands and everything out there. And I'm not even just talking about decking, we're talking railing, we're talking accessories. There's competition in every single market, right? So it's finding just, companies that align good with your business model, that work good with you, that you enjoy installing, that you think are going to, last over time, and associating with companies that you feel that are going to be in there for the long run. So if you ever do have issues down the road, they're there to back you, right? So I wouldn't say, I'm not sponsored by any company. There's no company that pays me to do anything. I can choose whatever product I want. But there's certain products that we enjoy working with and everything like that. So we reached out to those reps. And like I said, it was kind of overwhelming. I was hoping that like a couple of them would sign up, but pretty much almost every single company was on board. One of the nice ones was the hideaway screens out where you guys are. We haven't used a lot of their product, but it's definitely a product we like. Our issue here is that we run into engineering concerns. So it doesn't always make the most sense, but to me, it's like just such a beautiful product and everything like that. And it looks great, feels great and everything like that. So I haven't sold a ton of his product, but I reached out to him and said, hey, I'd like to incorporate this into my home show booth. I think it could be a lot better seller for us if we get, customers on board and can actually see it and everything like that. And he was like, yeah, literally whatever you want, we'll send you, we'll help you out. He actually even offered to come in for a day or two to help me out with the home show too. So the support for Loman.
Yeah, that's good. He actually, he did spend some time in our booth last year as well. We had his stuff on display and he made the same offer to come out and kind of work the show with us. We've always kind of tapped into that a little bit with our reps and contractors and whatnot to help out at the home show, just provide some more perspective and some more bodies in the booth, right? Sometimes it gets a little hairy in there, but
well, the biggest thing is the cost associated with the booth too, right? If I were to sit here and go and buy all these products out of my own pocket, this booth would add up pretty quick. I don't know if you've seen our design on Instagram there, but it's definitely not a simple booth by any means, right?
Yep.
So the fact that all these companies are willing to back me and support me and everything like that, it's a huge confidence boost for me as well. And it makes me feel better about using these companies that they're not just after my dollars type of thing. They're there to support me as well.
That's right. Yeah. So aside from your old local home show, you've obviously been to Deck Expo. That's where I met you the first time in person, was down in Louisville at Deck Expo. You also went to Landscape Ontario Congress. Is that the name of the show? Landscape Ontario. What's that show called?
Yeah, they just call it LO Congress. So it's a Landscape Ontario show here.
So that was just on this week.
So that was just this week. They ran it for 3 days. Landscaping doesn't make up any of our business. We don't dabble in any of that. But the nice thing about that was I talked to a bunch of these local landscapers and stuff like that from Instagram. So to actually go down there and get to meet them and actually put a face to everyone, shake hands, have conversations and stuff like that. And brainstorm ways that we can kind of work together to, produce better products for both of us.
Yep.
Was hugely beneficial. There wasn't a huge deck presence there, but they had some deck brands and everything. But like I said, it was just building those relationships with different suppliers and retailers and different people in the business. That's where the money is. Same thing with Deck Expo. You're not going there to, necessarily see the new products or meet with, see what they have in store, but you're going there to meet with the people, to communicate with people, to be in front of people. So you're actually making those connections, because even Instagram, as great as it is, at the end of the day, it's two faces behind a screen, right? It's nice, but it's not, the most personable option. So to go and actually be face to face with someone and, make that genuine connection it goes a long way.
Are you going to IBS this year?
I'm not going to go to IBS. I kind of got enough stuff going on back at home between trying to get this home show booth going. I just got engaged. We're getting ready to move into our new house in like the next month and everything. So it just doesn't make sense for me time-wise. As well as my kind of general take from that is IBS is just a little bit overwhelming with too much stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, we're not going to attend IBS this year. Maybe down the road we will or whatever, but we'll make plans to hit up Deck Expo again this year in Baltimore.
For sure, yeah. That's a good one. That's always it's a mainstay in our schedule now every year. Unfortunately, it sounds like they're moving it back up to October this year, which is not ideal. But
yeah, it's a little unfortunate.
Yeah. So you sound pretty busy. Got engaged, moving to a new house, working on some business stuff here. What we get this question all the time, so I'm going to give it to you because you're also in a seasonal cold climate market. What's the temperature there today, by the way?
Actually, we're pretty good here today. I think we're, just look at the thing. We're actually sitting at 8 degrees here today. They're calling for I want to say it's 80 centimeters or something crazy of rain in the next day or two. But we do get colder weather. Yesterday it was minus 10 here. I think we're probably sitting at minus 16 or something with the wind chill or whatever. So we do get those, we do get a winter, right?
Yep.
For us this year, I just made the decision that I wasn't going to take my focus away from my business and go do something else that wasn't helping me just to put $1 in my pocket. And what I'm talking about is going and taking on interior trim work or doing some renovations or something like that.
Yeah.
Even though I'm perfectly capable of doing all that stuff, at the end of the day, it's not helping my business, which is my end goal, right?
Yeah.
So I said, our winters aren't terrible, too bad. They do get cold, but at the end of the day, we got enough days that are -5 with no wind chill. To go ahead and work in that isn't the end of the world.
Yep.
So if I can pick up jobs over the winter, then that's great. We got a couple scheduled in. So like I said, I'd rather just even be a little bit slower with that and then have more time to focus on the business end of things instead of just stay busy and then lose track of the business side of things. And then all of a sudden April comes around. It's oh shit, I better get my ass in gear here.
Yeah, exactly. When you said it's 8 degrees, is it +8 or -8?
+8.
+8.
It's warm here today.
Well, that's a pretty good.
Yeah.
That's +8 Celsius. So for the American listeners, that's, I don't know, somewhere around 45-ish, I would guess.
Yeah.
It's -21 here right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it was yesterday you posted the story. It was -16 or something.
Yeah, which is -5 Fahrenheit this morning. So I woke up this morning and I was about to leave for work and my wife was about to leave for the gym and her car wouldn't start.
Yeah.
So that's what we're dealing with right now. A few days ago, it was +3. Before I went down to Grand Rapids, it was we had a nice streak as well, but that ended abruptly on Tuesday. And now next week, it's supposed to be all -30, which is probably about -20 Fahrenheit. Not ideal for deck building.
Your whole why do you build in winter podcast as well, right? It's not the most ideal time of year to build, but at the same time, there's a lot of benefits that go along to building that time of year. So if you can kind of just have those upfront conversations with your clients and set expectations that, normally this deck takes a week to build, but during, winter conditions, if it's getting too cold or whatever, if it doesn't make sense for us to be working, it might get stretched into 2 weeks or whatever, but you have that deck, come springtime, everything's done. We're not making a mess of your yard. You're getting in at the previous year's rates and everything like that. We're having all those conversations now with our suppliers, and it's the old story. The prices are just going up across the board, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's some benefits. They may be hard to see, but if you sit down and put some thought to it, there's, like I said, most of them are benefits to the client or whatever, but that just gives you more reasons to sell. It's an easier sale to do that. Some people aren't thinking about it in the middle of winter. They're not thinking oh, we should build our deck now. But if you kind of get in front of them and give them some good reasons as to why they might want to, it is possible to sell those jobs.
generating leads right now, and we'll have that conversation. And some of them are like, oh yeah, I never even thought of to do it in the wintertime.
Yep.
And some people are like, yeah, you know what, we don't want to deal with it in the winter. We'll deal with it in the spring type of thing. So teach their own. But like I said, we booked a couple of projects over the winter. That's kind of good enough for me to keep me busy. And luckily I had a good enough year that I was, I tried to be as smart as I could with the money we were bringing in and everything like that, that I wasn't, depending on having that full income, throughout the winter, right? So.
Yeah. It's always going to slow down. There's no way to stop the slowdown. It's just kind of managing it, right?
But it's been great for business wise, like dealing with all this different stuff and diving in and having the time to actually go in and research different things and coming up with all that. I would have never had downtime to do that before.
Absolutely.
Right? So.
We try to take that look at things all the time too, being that we don't get into things that aren't decking related. We don't, for the same reason as you don't, we don't want to get outside of our niche. So a lot of people question us what we're doing in the winter and whatnot. And as much as it is a struggle cash flow wise, there's some important stuff that happens in that downtime that if you didn't have that downtime, we almost look at it as a benefit. When things slow down, we have a chance to sit back and get strategic about things and plan for the next year. There's a way of looking at that could be advantageous, is how we try to look at it. So.
Absolutely. So we've had time to sit down. I've done full projections on numbers that I think that we could probably pull this year and everything like that, and just dialing in everything. So I know what I can expect for our operating expenses, roughly the volume of decking we can produce in a year. But then even having the numbers to know what we're going to sell in decking, what we're going to sell in railing, our lighting, all our different things, the time's going to take to build that, the labor that's going to be involved in building that, and just having your overall picture of knowing those numbers to go into the year, it just makes it a lot easier than all of a sudden start quoting and scrambling and be like, am I charging enough for this? Am I still making money? Am I losing money? And then not knowing until the end of the year when you basically go and figure out your books.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I've run out of things on my list of topics to cover here today. Was there anything else that you specifically wanted to bring up on today's episode?
Where's this list you had?
Where's the list I had? It was your list.
That was my list.
I had my own little bit of a list, but it was more the the who you are kind of stuff. But your list was much more intriguing, and I thought it would provide more value to people. So we went through it, but we're nearly at the end of it. So I wasn't sure if there's anything else that you wanted to add.
I think we definitely covered quite a few things. I think you can tell pretty well from our Instagram. I'm a pretty open book. If you have questions, reach out to me. I can't guarantee I know all the answers or know what's best, but I can probably come to you with a pretty good idea of how to do things or what might work or might not work. And the main thing is just having those discussions with people and finding out things, because you could be doing something for so long that you think's working great, and then you never know about something else until someone else mentions it. Like, oh shit, I never even thought of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you don't know what you don't know sometimes. And that's why it's good to be involved in the community and just be watching and listening and asking questions, because sometimes, like you said, things pop up that all of a sudden make a ton of sense and you wouldn't have thought of it before because you didn't know. So thanks for joining us today, Mike. If anybody wants to follow Mike and his business on Instagram, it's at Simcoe Decks, and that's SIMCOE. You said you're on Facebook as well, a little bit, same name.
Yeah, so I honestly don't really do anything on Facebook. I'm part of that Facebook builders group, but that's kind of the extent of that. So the easiest way to reach out to me is just through Instagram.
Sure.
And like I said, if you got questions or whatever, you can comment, send me a personal message. I don't really care. I'm pretty good at trying to get back to everyone and at least offering my input into things.
Awesome. Yeah, Instagram's kind of the go-to, so find him there. If you have any questions from Mike, follow his stories on Instagram. Like I said, he posts a lot of value there on the back end stuff that, like I just said, sometimes you're not thinking about it, but once you see it, it makes a lot of sense. So Mike, thanks for joining us today. Everybody else, if you want to find us, yeah, you bet. And if you want to find us, Instagram is also a great place to go. Hit us up at the Ultimate Deck Shop. This has been a fun episode with Mike from Simcoe Decks. Until next week, everybody, enjoy your cold, bitter week.
You've been listening to the Ultimate Deck Podcast.
Ultimate Deck Podcast.
Brought to you by the Ultimate Deck Shop. Shop with us at www.ultimatedeckshop.com or check us out at all the social networks we can keep up with. Hit us up for any collaboration or sponsorship opportunities. Thanks for listening.